Hey guys, this is Grimmygramgrapple. I just played a game called Moonlight Walks. I was going to play a bunch of Ouya games, but it's weird because right when I realized that my recording wasn't working and I fixed it, I started playing Moonlight Walks. And it's an interesting story. So this episode or multiple episodes, I don't know what to make of this yet, will be dedicated to that. Enjoy. Now I'm gonna bring you some Moonlight Walks. Let's start the game, shall we? It was the summer before I started college. I had spent the past 2 years studying, taking tests and applying for admissions. Now for the first time in a while, I had a little downtime, so I decided to take the opportunity to explore America. Fuck yeah! But since I was broke, my plans were quickly scaled down to spending the summer at my aunt and uncle's house on a small island known as North Sand Island. North Sand Island was a barrier island in the Atlantic Ocean. It was remote enough that there wasn't even a bridge to it, just a ferry that ran a few times a day. Being such a small island, there wasn't all that much to do, but the solitude was nice, and I found ways to pass the time. One thing I did was to take pictures with my digital camera. On the night of the full moon, I decided that I wanted to capture the moonrise. So I went on the beach just before the moon came up, set my camera on my tripod, and locked it in the appropriate shutter speed, f-stop. After a few seconds, as the moon rose, I used the remote that came with my camera to snap another frame, showing the moon and its reflection in the water. It took a few minutes for the moon to rise over the horizon, but I kept at it for a while longer. Finally, I was done. I started packing up my camera and my tripod to get ready to head back to my aunt and uncle's house. That's when I first saw her. In the distance, I could see someone else walking down the beach. I could tell that it was probably a girl or a woman from the long white dress she wore. From that distance, it was hard to tell anything else about her. I decided to stay a bit to see who it was. In all the times I've gone out stargazing, I've never met anyone just walking down the beach in the middle of the night. At a late hour, most people were either home or in the town with other people. You hardly saw people by themselves. The only time I've seen someone else on the beach at night would be when they were watching the stars or the satellites go by. But those people stay still and look up at the sky, while the girl was looking down at the ground in front of her, watching where she was going. I ran through a number of crazy scenarios in my head. Maybe she had some disease that meant she couldn't be out in the sun. Yes, because that's the first thing I fucking think when someone's walking on the beach at night. Maybe she was looking for buried treasure. Okay. Yo ho, a pirate's life for me. It only took me a few seconds to dismiss these. What was the chance of them actually happening? I waited for a while as she slowly made her way down the beach. I didn't think such a slow walk could be for exercise, but I had no idea what else she could be doing out here. Shut the fuck up and just get on with it! Finally, she was close enough that I could get a good look at her using the telephoto lens at my camera. She was a beautiful girl. Oh, I knew that I wanted to take her picture. Take her picture. Be a creep. God, you just never stop fucking talking. Oh, shit!
There is a fifth dimension, beyond that which is known to man. It is a dimension as vast as space and as timeless as infinity. It is the middle ground between light and shadow, between science and superstition, and it lies between the pit of man's fears and the summit of his knowledge. This is the dimension of imagination. It is an area which we call the Twilight Zone.
Hello. Maybe it wasn't the most eloquent of lines, but it was all I could think of at the time, and it got the job done. She stopped, looked at me, as if waiting for me to say something else. It's a nice night. It's warm, but not really all that hot. She nodded at this, but didn't say anything. I finally decided to cut to the chase and ask her the question on my mind. So, what are you doing out here? Walking. Just, walking? In the middle of the night? Yes. Are you, going anywhere in particular? I walk around the island, following the beaches. The island wasn't that big. I could go around it in a few hours, maybe a little more if I stopped for a break. I'd have no problems keeping up with her. Mind if I walk with you? If that's what you want. I decided that I'd bring my camera with me, but I hid my tripod in the bag in the dunes. This took only a few seconds, and we quickly started walking down the beach. We walked in silence for a while until we could no longer see where we started. I looked back away and saw only our footprints breaking up the sand of the beach. Walking was great, but I needed to try talking to this girl. I decided to see if I could find out why she was out at night. So, she stopped and looked at me. Is there a reason why you're walking down to the beach at night? It's something to do. I see, do you do this often? It seems like I do this every day. Do you always walk alone, or do other people come with you, or... Usually I'm walking by myself, but once in a while I meet someone else, and sometimes they decide to walk with me. It's only happened a few times though, and I don't think that anyone has asked as many questions as you. I didn't know how to take this, and we stood in silence for a second. Finally, she let out a small laugh, smiled, and took the initiative. What were you doing out here? I didn't think she was interested in me, and so it took me a second to respond to her question. Seeing my hesitation, she elaborated. I think we both agree that it's rare to meet someone else out on the beach this time of night. So what were you doing here? It took me another second to think back to what I was doing, and finally I answered. I'm into astronomy. Well, stargazing, really. I was out taking digital photos of the moon as it rose. Yeah.
Please don't judge me, and I won't judge you.
She looked at me questioningly, as like how her eyebrows moved, as if she didn't know what I was talking about. I found that a little odd, as I thought everyone knew what a digital camera was. I decided that the easiest way to explain was to show her some of the pictures I had taken, and so I pulled out my camera and turned it on. I switched to play the pictures and called up one of the last pictures I had taken, one which showed the full disk of the moon. I held up the camera to the girl to let her see the pictures on the screen. She took a good look at it, turned to take a look at the moon in the sky, and then took another long look at the screen. The moon it's so small. Ooh! I didn't know what exactly she was trying to get at here. The pictures are small here, but they look much bigger on the computer screen. I tried explaining and it doesn't seem to confuse her even more, and I decided to change the topic. Did you grow up here? I did. When I was growing up, there wasn't all these houses and buildings on the island. The only things on the islands were farms, and farms were huge. Only 4 families lived here, and between us, we owned all the land on the island. My family was one of the 4. We owned the southern end of the island, where we first met. We hadn't cleared all of our land, but we had a large enough farm that we could grow the food we needed and sell some at market. I didn't know that the island's population was so small so recently. I knew that tourism could grow a population, but so quickly? No, she's dead! She is a dead person. You are talking to a dead person.
Let her go, Jim. He's dead.
Did you go to school on the mainland then? Once in a while, when we took the ferry over to sell our produce, we would spend a few days in the school being tested. But most of the time, we were homeschooled. Mama would teach us reading and writing, and Papa would teach us math and things. At least, before they died. With this, her smile went away. It was obvious that this was a hard subject for her to talk about. Drop the subject. It looked like if I asked her to continue, she would break up into tears. So I decided to let it go, and instead, just started walking down the beach again. I don't know how much time passed until we spoke again. Maybe it was an hour, maybe less, maybe longer. We slowly made our way around the island with me walking a few feet behind her. If it had been someone else, I probably would have taken my leave and headed back for home. But there was something about this girl that made me want to stay with her. An aura of some sort, a beauty, of tragedy, of loneliness. And me being a goth, I love that shit. Perhaps some combination of all of them. Ho ho, and more. Ho ho.
I'm exhausted.
Yeah, me too, but, you know, I'm really wired. What do you say I take you home and eat your pussy?
And so we kept silent walking down the moonlit beach. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore, and I tried once again to strike up a conversation. So, is there anything you want to do with your life? After a few seconds, she said nothing, as if I had said something wrong. But then she began to speak. Once, I thought I knew. When I was younger, it was like my life was planned out for me already. I would follow in my mother's footsteps. I'd help out on the farm for a few years. Even when we were young, we had chores. And when we finished our schooling, we could help out even more. Eventually, I meet a nice boy. I didn't know who at the time. Thinking back, it probably would have been one of the Miller boys. They were around my age. We would get married and start a farm of our own. We'd raise a family together, a few girls. And I always wanted a boy, because all I had was sisters, you see. Now, however, her smile vanished as she let the thought trail off. After a little while, she changed the subject back to me. What about you? What do you plan to do with your future? Her question took Her question took me a little off guard, both because I wasn't expecting her to ask me the same question, and because I'd never really thought much about my future. Why the fuck wouldn't you think she would ask you, hey, what's about your life? If you don't know what to talk about, just fucking people do parrot shit. They just imitate whatever the question you have. Jeez! She smiled a little at my obvious confusion. I'm spending this summer visiting my family when it's over. I'm gonna go off to school. Aren't you a little old to still be in school? Well, state school. I'm going to be attending a university in the fall. I don't know what I'll do after that. I don't even know what classes I'll be taking or exactly what my major's gonna be. I'll figure that out when I'm not at school. I'll be living with my parents for a while. Eventually I'll get a job and move out. As to settling down and starting a family, well, I have no idea about when that's gonna happen. I haven't really thought much about it yet. I don't think many people have their lives all planned out for you, as you. I think most people are just sort of winging it. At this, she let out a quiet laugh. Is there something wrong with that? No, nothing at all. In fact, I think I envy you. Why? Well, you can do anything you want with your life. You can go anywhere you want. Some people would think that having too many choices is some sort of curse or burden. But I think it's just freedom. And that's a good thing. It's nice to live a life where your future is open, where you can do anything you want. Once again, I didn't know what to say, and for a second I thought we'd go back to walking in silence. But instead of letting the conversation falter, she kept going. What do you do for fun? Lots of things. I like drawing, listening to music, and watching cartoons, and football on TV. Football? She repeated terms slowly, as if she knew both words, but had never heard them together in that way before. Yeah, football, you know, the sport? You heard of it, right? She shook her head to initiate that she hadn't. How can you begin to describe it? Okay, so there are two teams on the field at once, and one of them has the ball. The center hikes the ball to the quarterback. The quarterback can either throw the ball to the other player, hand it to the other guy, or try to run with it. Everything I said seemed to confuse her even more, but I didn't know what else to do, so I just kept going. The other team tries to stop them by tackling the player with the ball. If they can't move the ball 10 yards in 4 downs, then the other team gets it. It was around this part of my explanation that she broke out giggling. Now that I look back on it, my explanation was sort of absurd. And so we passed the night talking about things. Mostly I talked and she listened. Sometimes she would ask me questions and I would answer them as best as I could. Many times that wouldn't be good enough and she would break out laughing as I fumbled through other explanations. We went for the rest of the night like this, talking and laughing as we made our way around the island. By dawn, we had made it almost all the way around the island to the cliff, not far from where we first met. The girl started to climb back down to the beach below, and I stopped her. I thought we could stay here and watch the sun come up. To my surprise, her reaction to my explanation was one of shock. It's sunrise already? I have to be going. This came as a surprise to me. We had been getting along well, and now she was talking about... and she was about to run off? She must have seen the disappointment on my face as she changed her tone as she elaborated. It's not you. I like... it's just that I can't. I understand. I understand perfectly well! I said, not really understanding anything. As she started walking away, I searched my mind to see if there was anything I could say to keep her there just a little longer. Suddenly I realized that there was something I had forgotten to ask her. What's your name? I realized that throughout the entire night, I have never asked her what her name was. A bad habit of mine is that I have whole conversations without knowing someone's name. I do that too! So I asked her, almost shouting the question to her. She stopped walking, turned back to me, and smiled. It's Mary. Mary Harper.
If, however, your feelings have changed, I would have to tell you. You have bewitched me, body and soul, and I love and love and love you. I never wish to be parted from you from this day on.
Well then. Your hands are cold.
At that moment, the sun cleared in the horizon. Its brilliance blinded me, and I reflectively closed my eyes. I've seen the sunrise many times before and since, but I've never seen it as bright as it was that time. When I opened my eyes, the girl was gone. I didn't know why she went, how she had left so quickly, or where she had gotten off to. The only thing I did know was that I wanted to meet her again. Having found her name, I proceeded to look her up on the web. Of course, the name Mary Harper gave me thousands of hits, and after I narrowed it down to the local area, I got nothing at all. According to the phone book, no one named Harper lived on the island. After getting some sleep, I went to the library to try and find out more about her. Like, give it a couple of days. Knowing she said that she was from around here, I took out a book on the history of North Sand Island. The only thing I found when I looked up Harper in the book was the story of the Harper family that lived on the island in 1780s. They were wiped out by an epidemic that killed almost everyone in the island in 1990, after a few boys escaped to tell the tale. It left the island empty, and it wasn't until after the Civil War that people settled here again. I looked through the book and through the records of people living on the island after it was resettled. Despite hours of searching, I couldn't find anyone named Harper. That night I went out to the beach where I saw her, hoping to meet her again. I spent the entire night there, but she didn't show up. I tried again the next night, and the night after that, every night for 2 weeks. And after the first night, I never saw her again. And I never forgot her, either. Okay. Well, I played a lot more of that than I thought I would. Oh. Okay. Well, thanks for watching. Please like, favorite, and subscribe. It really helps us out. Bye.
No, I'm right next to you, bitch.
You saw me
No!
alone.
Ah, damn it!
In my heart,
Next thing that gets
without a
smashed
love
will be your
of my
face.
own. Blue moon, you knew just what I
bitch!
was there for.
Not in my house!
Heard me say
I'm sorry, that was me.